Welcome into the ESPN FC studios. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Stevie Nicol, Craig Burley and Steve McMahon. And I feel like I say this every day, but another great show in Russia. This World Cup just seems to keep giving and giving. A little later on, we'll look back at Belgium's win against Japan. But we'll start with Brazil's 2-0 victory over Mexico, which of course kicked off the day. Mexico started the game well, and Mexico just, I suppose Brazil just showed their quality in the end.
They just put the pedal to the metal after a worrying 15-20 minutes where Mexico came out. It's like a boxer coming out first couple of rounds and swinging away, going for the knockout punch. But once Brazil started to control the tempo of the game, they started creating chances. Ochoa was having to make saves, they were having to make last-ditch challenges, and it was only a matter of time before we got the breakthrough. But I thought Mexico were competitive for most of the game, and I thought it made for a good spectacle.
Brazil just seem to be getting better and better.
Yes, they do, and yeah, I agree with Craig. I thought Mexico did themselves proud to a certain extent, but they just run out of it in the end, wasn't it? It was a nice goal, lovely play by Neymar, nice back heel, opened it up. I thought William was excellent, Coutinho was good. But that little bit of class opened, finally opened the door, and Neymar got to the end of it. The second one was just, poor defending, and he looked a really tired team in the end, Mexico. But I thought they acquitted themselves really well. They just got done by the better sides with the better firepower. Yeah. And I think defensively they were a little bit more organised, Brazil, but I don't think there was any shame that Mexico went down to them today.
The quality showed, didn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Mexico put so much into the first half, particularly the first 20 minutes, where Brazil, at stages, looked unsure how they were going to break this side down. They were closing everything down. They were making them kick the ball long. They couldn't pass it out from the back. So for 20 minutes, it was, hold on a second. But when you put so much in, eventually in the heat and everything else, considering how far in the competition we are, the legs run out. And that's what happened. And Brazil from there just took over. And the quality shone through.
So they look like the best team in the tournament?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think I'll surprise anybody by saying that going forward, they look exciting, they create chances, and they score goals. But this Brazil team, defensively though, is so solid, so organised. And Mexico, at times, looked exciting going forward, but they got snuffed out. It just got snuffed out. I don't remember Alisson having one real save to make in this game. So, listen, as good as they are going forward, I think they're just as good defensively.
Thiago Silva looks as if he's got his head screwed on for this competition, doesn't he? And every now and again, we've seen him, as good as he's been, he's got a blip or a crazy moment in him, but he looks like he's trying to make up for not his disappointment, but the disappointment from Brazil. Down in Brazil. Yeah. So he's switched on, he's got a good partnership. The keeper's excellent anyway. He didn't have to do much today, but he's excellent, so they've got a good keeper behind him. That gives you confidence. And then you can bring people like Fernandinho off the bench and Firmino off the bench. And Marcelo's not even playing today. So if you're going out of this competition to Brazil, I don't think there's many teams, if any, are going away with their head down saying, well, that's a disappointment because we lost to Brazil. You've got to meet your match.
It is, though, a sense of deja vu for Mexico, the 7th World Cup in a row in which they've been knocked out in the round of 16. And throughout this tournament, of course, Sebastian Salazar and Herculez Gomez have been following Mexico. Boys, you're at this game. How was the experience for yourselves?
I'll tell you what, for those first 20 minutes, like the guys in the studio said, you really believed Mexico was maybe going to do something. And yet the point is totally valid. Brazil's goalie was never tested. There was half chances, but there was always an extra touch from the Mexican attacker, or if the final touch got there, it was somehow lacking. And by the 35th minute, you felt like Mexico had kind of run out of ideas, Herc, and by the second half, when that goal falls, it's a quintessential backbreaker.
Well, you spoke about those 20-25 minutes when you said Mexico was taking to this Brazilian team. We were there, and you can see an obvious disconnect from the Brazilian midfield, from Casemiro, Paulinho, Coutinho, to the front line. How desperate they were for them to come back, to fall, for the line of confrontation to be deeper. They didn't want to all of a sudden have them press and Mexico play out as easily as they did and then come at them in transition. Once they figured that out, Mexico ran themselves ragged. It was going on E. They had nothing else in the tank, and you can tell it was about 50-55 in. It was all Brazil from there. What Brazil couldn't do collectively, they did individually. Willian picked this team apart in the second half. Anytime a new defender came at him to commit, it would open up space for Paulinho, for Coutinho, for Neymar, and then Brazil, with the quality they have, did what they did. It does seem like deja vu because this was the generation, wasn't? This was the Mexican generation that was going to take them to El Quinto Partido, that 5th game. But this is the Brazilian team, and right now, the clear-cut favorite in this World Cup.
You know, guys, there's a saying in Mexico, jugamos como nunca y perdimos como siempre. We play like never before, but we lose like always before. There were moments in this World Cup where Mexico did play like never before.
Sure.
And as you point out, Dan, it is still a 7th straight round of 16 defeat.
What will the reaction be like in Mexico to this result, boys?
Oh, it's
the press will be out with knives.
Oh no, they are out. They are out. Fracaso is the word. Failure, epic failure, and they asked themselves why, and it's pretty evident. This has been the talking point in the press. Why can't we get to that 5th and final game? And it's simple. If you look at Brazil, 1 through 23 in this competition, these players play on the best teams in the best leagues in the world, and they're big players for those teams. The best player Mexico has is a 22-year-old who plays at PSV.
And there'll be desperation now, guys, because as Herc says, this was supposed to be the golden generation. Carlos Vela is going to be 33 at the next World Cup. Chicharito is going to be 34. The captain, Andrés Guardado, is going to be 35. They're going to need to rebuild this thing from scratch.
Well, Rafa Marquez will still be there.
All 43 years of them.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Herc, we're loving the moustache, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks for your work, boys. Interesting stuff from Osorio after the game. Of course, Neymar with the goal and the assist, but his antics certainly throughout the match caught the eye. Osorio coming out and saying it's just shameful that so much time can be lost over one player. That is a lesson for even children who play. This should be a game of men and not so much clowning around.
It's actually getting embarrassing watching this guy. Now you're not actually sure whether actually anybody's kicked him, because you wouldn't know the difference between just an ordinary tackle and somebody trying to do him.
But the incident on the touchline was a red card, yeah?
Yes.
He did get stamped on.
Yeah, but if you take that incident out, the guy just flops and rolls. I mean, anybody will tell you, if you're actually hurt, the last thing you do is roll around.
Right.
It's getting embarrassing. I've personally had enough of it. And he's going to get one of his teammates hurt. You know, because you saw Mexico losing the rag with him. That spills over and somebody else ends up paying for what Neymar's starting.
The sad thing is we're talking about that after the game. When he had his best game in this tournament so far, scored the first, set up the first and got on the end of it, a sort of 1-2 with Williams, set up the second for an assist for Roberto Firmino. Yet all the onus is on him rolling around, and he started that himself in the first game against Switzerland, and it's carried on. I didn't think he was that bad today, but the stamp on his ankle, for instance, just off the halfway line, just off the pitch. Yes, he did get stamped on. Yes, it was a red card, but his reaction to it was way over the top, wasn't it? Way, way over the top. And he has to be very careful. He's going to become a parody of himself in the end. Everybody is starting to talk about his theatrics, and it's wrong.
The one thing that's constant is we've talked about it every game.
Yeah.
Not just today. Every game they've played. We should be eulogising about this squad, this talent. And we talk about Coutinho and Willian today, and Neymar got his goal and he did play better. But every game at PSG last year, almost, if we were talking about the French League and we were talking about PSG, we were talking about his antics, his stupidity, boots on the head, moaning about other players, you know, all the other nonsense and the circus that went around it. We get to the World Cup, we're still talking about him.
The Brazil team kind of picks itself. So I'll go to you first on this, Craig, looking ahead to the game against Belgium. Firmino or Jesus? Who would you have up top?
Do you know, I was watching the first half. I personally, I think with the movement they got, I prefer Firmino.
Right.
That's obviously clearly the coach doesn't. I prefer Firmino with his physicality, with his movement and with his link-up play. Now, Jesus is more likely to run in behind. I prefer the Liverpool player at the moment with his
experience. I think if they're all fit, he'll play Jesus. That's his...
Yes.
Is
that the right choice?
Well, I think it is, because they played well today. I know Firmino got a goal late on. The bigger question for me is whether, if Marcelo's fit, whether he comes back, because he is in front of Felipe Luis. No matter how good a defender Felipe Luis is for Atletico Madrid, Marcelo's a bigger star. He normally comes right back in, and that would be the one concern for me, because he is not as defensive minded as Felipe Luis, and he will probably have to be against Belgium.
Indeed, Belgium booking a place in the quarter-finals. And they were 2-0 down against Japan, but a late winner sees them through to the last 8. This was a game that started slowly, Stevie, but just burst into life in the second half.
Yeah, well, it kind of went the way we thought it would. Japan would get men behind the ball and try and break, and they did so. And they got themselves 2-0 up. And they got themselves 2-0 up because we saw exactly the problem that Belgium have. We know they can go forward. We know they've got great attacking players. We weren't sure whether they could defend or not, and now we know they can't defend. And they certainly can't defend with 3 at the back.
Right.
You know, the 2 wing backs spent 90 minutes going forward when the team went forward and then try to get back when the team went back. You can't do that at this level for 90 minutes. You need somebody in the middle to step out and help you. And not one of the 3 had any interest in stepping wide to help out Carrasco on that side, or stepping forward and helping the likes of Witsel. I mean, the second goal was incredible. You got 3 centre-backs 10 yards away, standing watching Witsel, running between 2 Japanese players trying to win the ball. And the ball ends up in the back of the net. This ain't going to work against Brazil.
I understand. I understand you want to pick up the defensive frailties of Belgium, but you've got to give them a lot of credit. This was a team 2-0 down, the golden generation, last chance, and all that sort of rhetoric was getting ready to be thrown at them. Yet they come from behind.
Oh yeah, I was getting a huge bat. I think bigger than I've ever had, ready to smash them with.
The Brendan Rodgers bat.
No, bigger.
Wow.
But you know, whether it's Belgium or the players or not, Roberto Martinez has always been known for having teams that have been defensively fragile because of the way he plays. Now, whether he thinks they're good enough or he's arrogant enough to get away with that against Brazil, we'll find out. But what we should say, and it's kind of desperation, he made the changes. Mertens off. Fellaini's not got a lot of love at Manchester. You know, signed a new contract. Most of them are like, why are we signing him? Not his biggest fan, but he can affect the game in the way he did, big and physical. And then he puts Vertonghen to left back when he goes to the back 4. Chadley comes on, he changes the shape, and then we started to see Belgium on the front foot. But it took until the 2-0 down for him to actually make that change.
Yeah, they were good. Certainly good going forward, like we know. They were fortunate with the first goal. Vertonghen header, which sailed over the goal.
Yeah, which Vertonghen came out and said he
didn't mean it. And they deserved that little bit of luck. But once they got that, you knew that the momentum was up and they started to play. But the way they finished the game, and the shape they finished the game, will realise, you know, what Roberto's, what he thinks, because they're no way going to start that team against Brazil, and it'll be interesting to see whether he plays 4 at the back or whether he goes back to the 5 at the back, the 3 centre defenders, because we know that Brazil only play with 1 forward. So if you've got 3 centre defenders marking 1 forward in Gabriel Jesus or Roberto Firmino if he plays, they're going to be outnumbered elsewhere on the field, and that will be a worry.
In fairness to Japan, I mean,
I thought Japan were great, yeah. I
mean, how competitive will Japan? I mean, look at Belgium 1-11, and you think, right, maybe that's what they thought. They'll still not win the game. But I could probably only think of a couple of teams at most in this competition that have been cannon fodder. Yeah. Maybe Panama. I don't know off the top of my head who else has been.
Tunisia, I assume you could definitely
out of the England-Belgium group, probably those two. Everybody else might not have been pretty to watch, but they've been competitive. And once again, this competition, this World Cup has been great for its competitiveness, as well as its goals. And I thought Japan were absolutely magnificent to take such a talented team as far as they did.
They'll learn Japan because they were just...
Well, that's what I was going to bring up, just right at the end, wasn't it? Obviously, they committed a lot of players forward for the corner.
That's a bit silly.
Just tactically naive.
You've still got to give Belgium credit for the way in which they converted that.
Oh yeah,
that was a beautiful counter-attack.
The final goal was really, really nice, wasn't it? Poor corner, right into Courtois' arms, and then they were off. And the fact that they've gone 90 yards in, De Bruyne, 1, 2, 3 passes, and it's in the back of the net. I mean, they should be applauded for that, but Japan should not have conceded that, albeit it was a wonderful goal. You do not concede that in the last. That was the last kick of the game. The game ended on that. You cannot have a corner and then concede.
Am I allowed to give Lukaku some praise?
Well, you better do. That was a wonderful leave.
I have to say, I think it would be very. What did you say?
It was a wonderful leave, wasn't it?
It was a great leave. It was the best thing he did all game because he'd had a torrid up to
the ball. Not touch the ball.
He had a header 5 yards out.
You never mentioned
back to 1-1. Half the time he was giving free kicks away because his second touch was with his hand. So He came good at the right time, and the winning goal.
Macca, do you know about
has he got a Lukaku thing?
Oh my goodness.
No, at all.
The upside
Is it personal?
I told you exactly what happened today.
Yeah, but he missed a good chance, but he was very good for the goal.
Good chance.
The upside
You could have
is
stuck 2 goals together, and it was still going wide.
The upside is for Belgium is like 2 or 3, maybe more of their big players had a poor game by their standards.
Yeah.
Lukaku.
De Bruyne
Until he was involved in the goal at the end, which was a great goal, was quiet. Vertonghen got lucky with the goal. He looked fragile defensively.
I thought the goalkeeper was poor today.
Yeah.
I thought Courtois was poor today.
So from their sakes, maybe it was good. Well, it's good to get that out of your system. But if they play like that against Brazil, you can't carry 3 or 4. You maybe carry 1, 2 max. Can't carry 3 or 4. So I think De Bruyne in particular has probably got his worst game out of his system, and they've got away with it. That's a bonus.
That might be the kick up the backside they need to, because they have strolled. Yeah. Albeit that team didn't play against England, but they strolled against Panama and Tunisia. We know that, and maybe they came into this game today like most people. It's Japan. We should beat Japan quite easily, and they got a real shock to the system. They cannot afford that in the next round.
Is Martinez capable of swallowing his pride and going to a 4 and thinking about being somewhat defensive? Because when you look at the players they have going forward, they've got plenty of them. They don't need to play 3 at the back to have more players forward. They've got enough players that can create and score goals. What they need to do is solidify the back line. And the only way that happens, in my opinion, with what he has, is going to 4. But is he too stubborn to go to 4? That's the question.
Well, we'll find out on Friday, won't we? As of course it will be. This lineup on this side of the bracket is fantastic. You've got Uruguay against France, followed by Brazil taking on Belgium. Meanwhile, of course, on the other side, we know it's Russia against Croatia. After the break, we'll be talking about Colombia against England.